and welcome to Kootneeti's another strategic chapter today. And we are glad to have Mr. Shashank S. Patel, who is also the PhD researcher at the Department of East Asian Studies, Faculty of Social Sciences, University of Delhi. He was also the former consultant to the Ministry of Development of the Northeastern Region, Government of India, for tracing technological investments and advancement in the region. Shashank, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to Kootneeti. First of all, I'll start with some of the important questions about Prime Minister Kishida's visit. What is the significance of Prime Minister Kishida's meeting with President Biden in restoring his domestic credibility, and what are the expected outcomes for this on Japan's foreign policy?
Anamit, this visit is actually different from the earlier ones due to the timing and the agendas on the desk. And to be very fair, PM Kishida collect all the major defense allies in his baggage this time to have a straightforward one-on-one on defense cooperation. One thing is very clear that Kishida's name is etched into the history of the Japan as a prime minister who did, you know, the defense reforms pending from the last 2 decades, and it is going to be to make the Generation Z and the millennials of Japan happy, leaving some, factions in LDP itself unhappy. So I presume the implementation or I would say the domestic credibility of PM Kishida will cross the barrier of 40% at least after the implementation of this particular reforms. And this particular the Biden Kishida summit meeting is resulted in the reaffirmation of the USA towards their full commitment in USA Japan Defense Alliance. And another interesting thing, which everyone is observing here, that the USA finally armed his one more ally to counterbalance Chinese rise, and it will be a twin-edged sword for the Japan to for the tight walk in the future. So if I go with the pointers to make that, what are the major outcomes coming in my mind? Uh, the first and very obvious thing is the official exit of Article 9 from Constitution of Japan is coming. It was already neutralized, although passively from 2015 onwards by extending the supplementary aids to the self-defense forces. The second one, which came into my mind, is the proposed 5-year program in the defense budget, which catering the a humongous amount of around $51.4 billion will attract the mammoth arms industry of the West into the Indo-Pacific, and it will directly result in more lethal and aggressive stance on the foreign policy front by Japan. The third point, which I see, the merger of the defense policies in foreign policy of Japan. And it can be easily sensed by reading this recently released documents like NSS and the National Defense Strategy. The Constitution of Japan is clearly not pacifist anymore. So to sum up this particular point, I would say the Japan, somehow lost its strategic space through this particular realignment in the defense policy. And it is bitter to say, but it turned the diplomatic den into a barn for their foreign policy makers.
Kishida and Biden discussed Japan's plans to acquire missile able to strike targets across East
Hmm.
Asia. What is the goal of Japan's acquisition of missiles that can strike targets across East Asia?
See, you are asking about the goal. If I go with the official statement, the answer will be the advance, I would quote the official statement here. The advance bilateral modernization initiatives between US and Japan are to build a more capable, integrated, and agile alliance that bolster deterrence. The word deterrence is very important here, which was in the official statement, to address evolving regional and global security challenges. But if I go critically analyze the events of the last week, it is more than just developing the deterrence capability generations or capacity generation for the Japan. See, I have reasons to say that. In December 2022, you saw the reports were there that Japan will develop multiple long-range missiles, including the hypersonic, up to the range of 3,000 kilometers, and aim to deploy prior 2030. Okay. In next 15 days, the statement was later in the month, the $320 billion corpus fund to planned to buy the missiles mentioning that those capable of striking all Chinese territory were on the floor. Okay, so these two things are very critical here. The first one is the range has to be 3,000 kilometers, including the hypersonics, right? On the lines of the thoughts which the South Korea has. And the second thing is that it has to be, on the place prior 2030. So what are the options on the floor for the Japanese? So in this particular light of these particular developments, I can vouch the discussion between Kishida and the Porters is the next step of this ongoing thread, and you will soon see that Lockheed Martin or BAE Systems will ink the $1 billion deal with the Japan for the requisite missiles in layered manner.
Prime Minister Kishida also visited Canada. So, what are the main areas of cooperation between Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Prime Minister Kishida Fumio? And do you think it can help both the countries?
Anamitra, see, this is the G7 tour of PM Kishida, right? And in context with Japan, again, in context with Canada, again the pitch was same, where both countries agreed to bolster the security cooperation with an eye on the Chinese increasing military assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific region, and both agreed on the common line. And this same again, the official statement said the line: China is a central challenge, and this is on the both of the both of the official statement from Canada itself and the Japanese side also. But in addition to that, support for G7 presidency, energy and food security, nuclear disarmament and proliferation, climate change and healthcare. These were the important domains on which the Japan and Canada agreed to collaborate. Also, one thing, Japan will send a trade delegation. This is the very important thing because to meet the Canadian battery and mining companies over there for the potential, finding the potential partners for EV cell development. And Canada is actually seeking to woo their foreign investment in EV supply chain, where Japan has the edge. So it can be easily seen that at that time, Justin Trudeau urged the Japan to remain a proactive party to its Indo-Pacific strategy launched in November 2022, designated for the common benefits. And in return, Japan is looking to Canada to play a major role as a resource rich country which can actually provide supplies to fuel its export driven industries through JVs and the stakeholding in the Canadian firms. I have the example. I think you can see, the ex Mitsubishi. I think yes, it was Mitsubishi who owns the 15% stake in the LNG Canada, led by the Shell company for the supply of the natural gas in Asia. Both the countries are actually, rallying towards the all the new technologies who are coming on the foray. So these are the additives which you can see in this particular visit.
So, where do you like to place China in all the visits that took place?
Now, this is the cornerstone of the of this particular visit of the all seven countries. See, this one week long visit of the PM Kishida is the implementation of the National Defense Strategy, which clearly wrote, and I quote two statements to sense the gravity of the situation. The first, China is the greatest strategic alliance Japan ever had. This is the headline. This is in the introduction, right? And second is the China's hegemonic moves are a serious concern for Japan. Japan was infuriated by China's lobbing of missiles around them. In August 2022, five of which landed in Japanese waters, and this was the first time this had happened. Okay, that's why it is. That's why the Japan is actually increasing anxious over the greater maritime activity by the Chinese military in the East China Sea and around the Senkaku Islands, which is the disputed territory between both of the government, China and Japan both. The two leaders actually didn't name China. I'm mentioning two leaders, the Kishida one and the POTUS. Okay, they are not mentioning the name China, but all the other official communique quoted China directly as an utmost reason to strengthen the defense architecture in East Asia. See, blame it or not, but the reality is, armed provocations from China turned out to be the biggest headache for them in the next 10-year onwards because this Western club, adrenalized with warmonger arms industry, will continue to hit this particular East Asia region. And this is the core of everything.
And above all, the last question from my end, which can also be seen as one of the most important aspect of Prime Minister's visit. And you have
Hmm.
also written something similar on that, on a particular article. So
Yes.
how is Japan's security policy transforming under Prime Minister Kishida?
Mm, I'll start the answering this question by wedging unprecedented statement of former Russian President Medvedev. He stated Japanese PM Kishida should ritually disembowel himself and accused him of shameful subservience of the USA. See, why Russians are in discomfort over his security policy transformation of Japan? It was usually seen from the Chinese side earlier, right? Not from the Russians. Okay. So PM Kishida's 180-degree turnaround in security policy is the result of deterioration in rules-based international order. And the major steps Japanese PM Kishida is taking are developing its own military capabilities, increasing its defense budget, rigging its alliances, enhancing its intelligence capabilities, and improving the deterrence. So these five particular things are directly related and attached to the security architecture. And Kishida is actually foreseeing the next aggression in East Asia, which will compel them to bring a resistive part of it. See, a future ready leader never allows a war on own land. Japan learned this from their security provider USA. Hence, to cope up with the future devastation which will majorly harm Japanese populace, Kishida is trying to rebuild or to build the new dome of their allies securing the Japanese territories with the common gains. And why I'm saying gains? Because PM Kishida sensed this that without material gains, none of their ally will respond with such enthusiasm and eagerness which Japan is expecting from them. Hence, I would say moving from reliance to self-reliance will automatically provides the necessary impetus to the parties involved in this region. And that's why I see the Kishida's role, and I earlier mentioned that Kishida's name will be etched in the history of the Japan as the prime minister who actually reformed the security architecture of Japan.
Thank you, Shashank, again for sharing such valuable information in this enriching session. We look forward to having you more in such kind of sessions. And thank you
Thank
so much personally for enlightening me with such valuable information. Stay tuned to Kootneeti for more such updates. Thank you.
you, Namitra. Thanks.